Alright, how you doing? Are you enjoying the restart of the channel? If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share with your pals. It helps grow this channel, and that makes that the artists I'm supporting, the artists I'm talking to, get to reach more people, and that's always going to be a good thing. And if you're here, you must be into that as well, and it's always really important, especially this year, to support independent, up-and-coming artists. But today is kind of a bit different. We are going to talk about some of those artists, but it's also going to feature a couple of established legends, even, because today is 8 years since I sat down in this very room, the dining room of my mum's house, and pressed publish on my first ever review on Blogspot. For those who don't know, I guess I started as a blogger accidentally, in a way. Really just writing reviews, did a couple of interviews early on, I guess, as well. A couple of feature pieces as well, but mostly reviews before getting into radio and whatnot. But we will get into that as we go through the years. Because to celebrate the last 8 years, I thought I would talk through the past 2,900 and something days. And through the artists who have been significant, the ones who have kind of had a real impact each year of my career, changed the way I was doing things, or just were kind of my obsession at the time, I guess, which is usually the case.
Why are you so obsessed with me?
So if you have followed me for a while, let me know in the comments whose music you kind of link me with. Who do you think of when you think of me? Whose music comes to mind? And if your memory's new to this, who do you think could be, or who do you think I should be looking out for, who could be on this list in a future update? I do want to go into some honourable mentions before we get into the full list. Shawn Manuel, who is the reason that I have more SoundCloud players than most of the artists that I cover. He did some amazing things back in 2013, 2014, I think it was, maybe it was even 2015. He was behind the Rap Like account, and that kind of had, I think, 30, 40,000 followers on Twitter before he released a song. And then he released the God's Playlist mixtape and all those other things. And I was really fortunate to be able to work with him quite closely in those times, doing interviews, getting exclusive premieres of his music and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely to honourable mention for him. Acapella, who was a rapper from Detroit, who I briefly managed in one of the kind of probably worst decisions of my career, not because of the music or Acapella himself, because he was amazing, and the reason why I wanted to do it is because I believed in his music so much, but more so because I mean, I didn't know what I was doing as a manager. I was just a blogger at the time. I had no idea what a manager even did, really. And the fact that he was based in Detroit in America and I'm in Newcastle in England meant that I had no contacts that were really going to be beneficial to him, apart from a couple online, but those were people that I was waiting for already, so I was already doing stuff for him. I couldn't get him any gigs because I don't know any venues in Detroit or Michigan or in America at all. So yeah, so it didn't go to plan, but still honourable mention, big impact on my career, just not quite in the top 8. Or at least not within the times that they kind of lapped over anyway. Similarly, Eloquence, who I did an album with, I exec produced his album. Again, didn't entirely know what I was doing, but actually probably enjoyed it a lot and would like to do it again sometime. He was a rapper that I met on a forum called Rap Royalty, which has a few honourable mentions in it, the likes of Loose Logic, who is still kind of the best rapper that I discovered from that site, and one of the best kind of technical double time rappers that I've discovered in the last 8 years, to be honest. Similarly, Secondhand King, who was like the co-runner of the website, he was amazing. His Chuck album really kind of struck a chord with me, I remember. And I have seen recently that he's released some new music, so I do need to check that out. There's a lot of these artists who I've kind of lost contact with and lost the connection with to listen to their music, but I definitely, after this video, going to go and listen through and see who still got it. And then there was the other kind of runner of Rap Royalty, Disputer, who, to my knowledge, wasn't necessarily a musician himself, certainly not at the time that I was on that website, but was a big mentor at the time and deserves a mention, not so much as an artist that changed my career and life, but somebody who was a mentor in the early days, and after I'd written like 2-3 reviews, was really kind of supportive, and when I wanted to quit, essentially wouldn't let us, and I really appreciate that. So to start, we're going to start each year, we're going to go through each year just about with an artist from each year, with one exception, well, 2 exceptions, because it works that way. And we're going to start with 2012, which was when I first started doing this, on the 12th of December 2012. with the man, the artist who saved my life, never mind, and gave me my career, inspired my career, Joe Budden.
Remember you pulled the rug from under me, left me to be alone, I threatened suicide, begged, was crazy about you.
So back in 2012, this actually kind of crazy career accidentally started when I wrote a review of Joe Budden's A Loose Quarter mixtape. I loved the mixtape so much, and it came out at a perfect time for me. I was depressed and suicidal, and had relatively recently got stuck into Budden's discography as a whole, after discovering him when Slaughterhouse signed for Shady Records in 2010, I think it was. So it kind of like slowly burned over, and was like listening to mood music and all of the albums, Escape Route, all of that. And really, really loved him. And then I'm a big believer, or big part of my music taste is being part of the journey and part of the release. I'm not so much into kind of historical music from like the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, because I didn't live through it. I wasn't there for it happening, and I quite like to be part of that and really be within the context of the music. So while I missed that for all of these previous releases, just about, A Loose Quarter was like the perfect timing for me. And Joe's completely raw, vulnerable, honest lyricism really struck a chord. And I grew up kind of mostly listening to kind of like emo, pop punk sort of stuff, like Fall Out Boy and Sum 41 and Simple Plan, who in kind of hindsight weren't really that kind of strong lyrically. There was just kind of the emotion behind it. And I think what Joe did really well was, and does in a way still really well, despite being retired, was kind of mix that kind of the emotion, the things that I was feeling and expressing them, but also doing it in a really complex way that felt really personal. I mean, I have not done or been through most of the things that Joe Budden talks about in his music, but they connected because it was so real and raw, and there was something about it, and the kind of the complexity of the lyricism really kind of just struck a chord. And yeah, and from there, the Root Music / Lee Hawthorne music was born, because I had been reading a few reviews in like Hip Hop DX and stuff like that. I remember reading one from the Roots' album around that time, I think. And that kind of made us really think like, oh, well, I want to kind of just write about the effect that this mixtape is having on my life and how much I really love it and how great it is. And then most of the producers, most of the features, most of the people kind of surrounding Joe Budden at the time shared it on Twitter, and that was when it kind of was like, oh, this could be something, and turned out it was.
Just hoping somebody hear me. Now I'ma get my mother like that she was trying to give me. Dear ma.
Now getting into 2013 was kind of a natural progression from 2012. Obviously, but in terms of the music and the artists who kind of reflect it, there are actually two artists, but the first artist came directly from Joe Budden and the A Loose Quarter mixtape, because Trev Rich from Colorado featured on that mixtape as his own song. I remember in my review of A Loose Quarter, I think it was ghostwritten, and I feel really bad for it, and always have. I can't believe Trev afterwards kind of reached out to us, and we had this great relationship up until a few years ago, really, and still, you know, it's not a bad relationship, we just haven't spoken much recently. But he has just released a song, Lie a Lot, which has a great lyric.
We the kings of the jungle, that's all I'm trying to say. You get movie clips, you come up to this Lions Gate.
But yeah, back in 2013, he released the Heights mixtape and all these other things. He was the reason why I got hired for Mile High Music, which was the first time I'd written for a platform that wasn't something that I was just doing in my dining room and on my own, which was really nice. And yeah, just throughout my years, he's probably been the artist that kind of went and did the most, I guess. He was kind of in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack, got signed to Cash Money, does amazing things. He writes a lot of music for other artists, from what I gather. He did for a while anyway. I don't know if he still does, but I assume he does. And yeah, I remember a really kind of one of those moments where it was too good to be a coincidence was before I started waiting for BBC Introducing. I think it was the week before, there was Introducing Live. I think it was the first year they did that, and they did a simulcast sort of thing. So I was listening to BBC Newcastle, where I was going to be working, still do work, and they were playing the simulcast, and the first song, I think, or at least one of the earlier songs in the show, featured Trev Rich. And that was like, wow, like this is so yeah, it's just essentially followed us through my career. And I definitely, when I was saying before about reconnecting with artists who I maybe don't speak to so much anymore, Trev is definitely going to be one of them that yeah, I would love to get an interview on this channel with and all that sort of thing, because he's doing amazingly. But then we get into the other part of 2013, so this is where the exception is, where I was originally going to do an artist from each year, but then I realised that there's no way that I can leave Trev Rich out, and there's no way that I could leave Leddie and Smoggy out either.
Sonnets of wordsmiths where I found solace and worship. No one said it was easy, they just promised it's worth it.
In 2013, at the end of the year, they released Sorry We're Late, their debut album and only album that they released as a duo from, I think. I've just done an interview with Leddie, you should go and check that out, and we talk about the album and them two together and stuff a little bit, but also her new music. Smoggy unfortunately isn't really doing anything anymore, but Leddie is smashing it, and yeah, they kind of really changed the trajectory of my career, in that at the time I was all about American hip-hop and getting into bits of grime again. I'd like kind of listened back in 2010, but obviously the scene kind of went away a bit for a bit in grime, but I had never ever heard any Northeast music at all, certainly not hip hop. I think that around that time I was maybe listening to kind of Lisbon, an indie band who aren't doing anything anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, Leddie and Smoggy's album got sent to us, well, there was a few singles got sent to us by Grant Bryden, who was one of, and is, I guess, one of my journalism heroes, and he's kind of done stuff like exclusively with like J. Cole's 2014 Forest Hill Drives, and I think it was Nas's Illmatic 20th anniversary album as well that he did stuff for. And he's from Newcastle, which was like amazing to me. And he was doing PR for Leddie and Smoggy, Sorry We're Late, and the first few singles like didn't really hit for me. I was like, it's like I think I just wasn't used to it, and like, but the accent and being from Middlesbrough just down the road from me was like, I still wanted to keep up to date with it because I wanted to get into it. And then the album came, and that was when it was like, yeah, this all clicked together. Front Row is amazing, and yeah, just a lot of things that they did on that album, sample of Joe Budden, Jay-Z, stuff like that, so that kind of helped reel us in as well. And yeah, I have to thank Leddie and Smoggy for giving me a paid career, I guess, as much as Joe Budden and Trevor Rich kind of really paved the way for me to do stuff internationally. It wasn't so greatly paid for the most part. It was when I started doing stuff within the Northeast music scene that I started getting paid work consistently, and yeah, so I have to thank Leddie and Smoggy for that. So cheers, thanks. But before I really got into kind of the Northeast scene, there was still kind of that grime renaissance kind of happening. And so in 2014, I kind of rediscovered my love for a trio called Marvel.
Marvel is a movement. Years to come, they're gonna marvel at the movement. History, straight edge.
I had kind of first heard of them back in 2010 in the kind of original boom, when I seen Chipmunks tour. I think it was like one of the first gigs I'd ever been to. Certainly didn't know what grime was. I just heard Diamond Rings and Oopsie Daisy and thought, I don't want to go and see this. I remember Getz was there. Now Getz is my favourite grime MC ever, but at the time I didn't really get it, so I looked bored and Getz called us out on stage and I was like, oh shit. But amazing, like looking back, and I definitely did not know how good I had it at that gig. But I do remember at the time Marvel kind of sticking out. I guess they were a little more on the kind of accessible side. And there was just something about them that I loved, and so when I kind of rediscovered them in, I think it was 2013, I probably rediscovered them, but then 2014 was a bit more kind of prominent. And yeah, just really, really loved what they did. Shocker, Double S, Vertex, they did split up a few years ago now. Double S is still doing bits, Shocker is still doing bits. I don't really see much of what Vertex does. I don't think he's on social media, and if he is, I don't have him. But I'm sure he's doing amazing videos and stuff because that's what he always did really well. They did release a final album in 2014, Marvel FM 5, and that was when I kind of got into my getting a bit in over my head, because I started sending loads of marketing ideas, like who was I at, would it be like 20-year-old? And tried to give these people who had been in the industry for years and had met Drake and Rihanna and were kind of in those circles and stuff. And I was telling them, oh, you should be on this social media platform and do a deal with these. And yeah, really bad crack actually. But they took it really well and never blocked us, so which I think they probably should have. But yeah, they were amazing, and I still do now and again have contact with one of their managers, Tim, who has been on the Forbes list and stuff, and it always blows my mind when he's like, I see his Instagram story, he's on a private jet somewhere, and then he's messaging me asking for like feedback on his book, and it's like, I've just like had to jump the metro because I couldn't afford to get it. Like, oh yeah. But yeah, amazing times, and like proper love Marvel, and hopefully they do some sort of reunion one day. But also their solo music's great as well, and we have the memories, and it's great times. It was in 2015 though where I kind of took that sending Martin ideas to Marvel and kind of realised how hard it actually was to manage a band or group or artist or musician or whatever, because I started doing stuff with The Great and the Magnificent.
Being signed can be Steve Burden. Careers dead in the water and you Steve Irwin.
Stitch and Breeze, great lads, had a really good laugh with them for the most part actually. And again, we don't really speak as much as we should, despite them being in Newcastle. So this was when I was kind of getting more into the Northeast scene, and had been writing reviews for Big Wig Bronson, and then they split, and Stitch and Breeze formed The Great and the Magnificent, kind of again after doing some stuff earlier on, but under different names and whatnot. And after those few reviews, obviously I was kind of connected to blogs and stuff, so then they asked us to do some PR stuff on them, and yeah, it was like a no-brainer, a band that I love, a group that a duo that I love. Asking me to do something for them was like amazing to me, and I really wanted to do it, and I guess it kind of went quite well to begin with. They got covered by like Mobo Awards, This Is 50, all sorts of like American blogs that I'd kind of had connections with from like influential bloggers, and then it kind of advanced a bit and started getting them gigs, a few gigs at like Think Tank and at the Clooney and stuff like that. And then in Middlesbrough, I remember one horrific time. So I think it's fair to say we all had our kind of personal issues, not with each other, just individually. And for me, I was kind of drinking a lot. And there was one gig in Middlesbrough where they had this Chucky doll as a mascot from like a Big Bronson song. And I just made a proper idiot of myself and probably embarrassed them even more so than I did myself. Was really bad times, and I just wasn't cut out to be a manager. I didn't know what I was doing at all, but I did really enjoy it. They did get their own back as well. From as much as I embarrassed them, I do have a long-lasting embarrassment still on the internet, where I was in a music video just down the road from where I am now, literally a 5-minute walk, dressed all in silver in a little body warmer, supposed to be Colossus from X-Men, but actually looked more like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. Yeah. But they've been doing some stuff. I think they're kind of back on track a bit as well, in their personal lives as well. Breeze is now a dad and married. Congratulations. I don't think I actually said that to you, which is really bad. Stitch went back to uni and or did all sorts of award-winning nominated stuff, doing animated music videos, which is amazing, and started doing stuff with LKP, who was the DJ at the time as well, as Scimitar, and they both released some stuff as The Great and the Magnificent as well. And yeah, all the love in the world in them, because I have all the love in the world. It just wasn't the right time for us to work together, and I had no idea what I was doing, but it was very enjoyable for the most part, especially that the highs were high to me anyway. So as I said, I kind of got more in the Northeast music scene, and I think if you were going to talk to me about the Northeast music scene and who was kind of most intrinsic into my career while in it, so obviously Leddie and Smoggy kind of got me into it, but once I was there, everybody knows I love New Northeast.
Last night my Mac was on shuffle, I heard flames in the darkness, thinking underneath forgot what was started.
NNE, a Sunderland-based collective who, I think there was 10 members when they had the most members. There was kind of a few who kind of joined later on and whatnot. Amazing. Like everything that they did just about was amazing. And You know, whenever they were releasing music, they've got some of my favourite releases. I mean, Razza's Frame by Frame, Reality's Stay Tuned album, 90 Bro's Requiem for a Scene, 90 Bro and Tuckage's Mixed Feelings collaboration, and I'm sure there's more as well that, like, off the top of my head, kind of think of exactly. But yeah, and then even kind of like their gigs, the headline independent, which is somewhere else that I work now, and were amazing. The kind of the energy, they were kind of still developing. They were only, like, I think some of them were 16, 17 at the time, and they were still kind of, so they were developing their sound and their confidence in their music. But there was just something special about them. We had to present as nights, Young Skepta presents nights as well, that were just amazing. And NNE were kind of just, yeah, I would play them all the time on radio. That's kind of how I got into stuff. When Young Skepta would play them, and then Young Skepta left, and I kind of took over and started presenting the show. And they were probably the artists as a collective that I played the most on the show and interviewed the most. You know, 90 Bro should probably be on this list on his own right. Reality could be on his list in his own right. But yeah, as a collective, just amazing. And yeah, there's not much more I can say because I've said it all already in every interview and conversation I've ever had in the Northeast music scene. So big up NNE. And then, as much as I say that about kind of being in the Northeast music scene and NNE being the ones that people would probably talk about, because they're not a thing anymore, I think maybe more recently people would say iconic.
Fire breathing, higher demon for the entire season. I am leaving. I require reason to try and beat them. No CDJs, but I'm pioneering.
And in 2017, we kind of really collided in a way, I guess, and since then have been intrinsic in each other's careers. I think it's fair to say. Since he released Sink or Swim, an amazing album. That was one of the best albums of that year. I think that maybe came out 2016, or was it 2017? There was one year where, like, a load of amazing albums came out from, like, Reality, who I mentioned, Leddie, who I've already spoken about. Kush Noodle released his album at the time. 90 Bro had his mixtape out at the time. Loads of amazing music. But I think Sink or Swim might have been the one that's kind of maybe lasted the longest and, spit one lyric, being the biggest grime anthem in the Northeast. Yeah, and then since then, kind of the stuff that we've done with DNR, I interviewed him. It's on his channel. Go and check that out. We've also done other things as well, where he played the gig for my 24th birthday. And yeah, but that kind of all really kind of started. Maybe not started, but really kicked off and was like the real starting point. Obviously, there was bits before it, but the real, was like, this is something, was when he did the spot with the mic and made it iconic. Yeah, it was the best one, unanimously. Like, everybody knows it. I am going to do a spot with the mic rant list at some point. I might get Iconic to do it with us. But yeah, he kind of really just put that and made my career, and is probably the artist within my radio days specifically that I'm probably most linked with. He did for my last show. He has a song called Classic, and he kind of did a dub for us. And yeah, Iconic is definitely one of the artists that kind of probably bleeds over a bit as well, actually, into kind of 2018, 2019, 2020 even, as the artist who for the last 4 years consistently has been significant in my career, without a doubt. And like I says, that kind of bleed over, because for me, 2018 kind of didn't belong to anybody, didn't exist. And actually that might have been the year that everybody released the albums, and maybe I am missing somebody. Apologies. But yeah, but then we get into 2019, and for me, any Dons.
So Lee Hawthorne walked straight up and said, mate, where's our spark of the mic? Yeah, where's our spark of the mic? I was like, yeah, mate, second that.
Come on, man. Like, the stuff that they did from meeting them for the first time, which might have been in 2018, might have been 2017 even, when they started doing the open mic nights at Obscene, or 16 Cafe, that Ashbrook and Hippo used to run. It's kind of famous in my mind, but I guess nobody other than us three probably really care about it. They came up to me before they went on and were like, oh, you're Lee Hawthorne, watch us. And I always hate when artists do that, because more often than not, the artists that are dead confident and do that sort of thing aren't necessarily the best ones. But they were amazing. And yeah, they blew me away from that moment. And then they had kind of really kind of low quality SoundCloud demos, I guess, at the time. But the bars and the energy were there. You knew what they were about. And then I did help their first single PR campaign for Nang. and I guess kind of did quite well. I've spoken to Morgan fairly recently, and he was like, we still feel like we're chasing that, which is a shame that I kind of help him out anymore and stuff because of work stuff. But really, really love doing that. And then they released the EP, amazing. I remember actually while I was doing the kind of PR stuff for them, it was when I was starting to volunteer a little bit for BBC Introducing, and they had an event at the Sage in Gateshead where Tom Robinson and Nick Roberts were hosting. And I kind of went along, did a few interviews with a few artists, but shared a dressing room with those two. And Tom Robinson was telling me, I found out at least that Tom Robinson was going to be playing Nan on his show that night. And it was like, this is like one of those moments where it's just like too good to be a coincidence, and just felt really special. And then they kind of released the EP, and I remember getting them into BBC Introducing, like I think it was the week before I found out I got the job. They did a session with Nick Roberts at Introducing the North East BBC Newcastle. And yeah, just an amazing time there. And then once I've kind of started waiting for Introducing, really nice. It's not all down to me. There's kind of a bigger team kind of involved, but it was really nice to be part of that team when there was discussions about tips for 2020, and they got on there, and then doing Lindisfarne Festival in 2019, and I ended up hosting that stage, and they performed, and it was like, yeah, so they're definitely kind of significant in my career recently. And they're releasing an EP this month. I can't remember if before or after this video is going to be out, but definitely check it out because the title track from it sounds amazing. I've just heard it, and yeah, I think it's going to be one of those big tracks for any dons. So go and check that out. And then we get into this final year, and I think this one is probably going to surprise quite a few people because I think there are the perhaps obvious one to a lot of people would be Zella, and unfortunately I don't think they quite made their mark on my career yet, especially compared to this artist. They're going to, undoubtedly. I mean, Sleep With Bad is a pure bop, and all of their singles are, and I'm sure we're going to be part of each other's career for a few years to come. There's no doubt in my mind. But actually, this year, for me, the artist who's been most significant in my career has been Drunken Junior.
Oh my God, it's a thrill. I like things you think this.
His EP is the best EP of this year, by the way. Go and check that out. Too Many Teeth, it's called. And yeah, it's an interesting one where, for while I've been waiting to introduce him, there's been a few artists who have really gone on and just smashed it. The likes of Sam Fender before I kind of joined, the likes of Dylan Carden before I joined, and kind of more recently, I guess, Martha Hill. But for me, those things were already at least set in motion, if not already done, before I started. But with Drunken Juno, it feels like he's a new artist who first uploaded while I was working on the shows and has gone on to be Radio 1 Track of the Week, played Big Weekend, doing Jack Saunders, doing all these amazing things. And as much as I kind of take credit for it, I feel part of it and really feel part of it. There's other ones I'll do a little bit as well, but this one feels like I can legitimately say, yeah, I kind of said, oh, we should forward this on, and watching him do just amazing things this year has been really good. And I feel a little bit early on him as well because it was in 2019 I did an internship with Amazing Radio, and I remember slipping Patrick Swayze into one of the shows because they needed like an extra song, and I was like, look, to make it do it. And I was like, well, I'm going to look for a Northeast artist, and Trumpet and Patrick Swayze was one of the few that were kind of already in the system, or where I was looking, kind of thing, at least. And yeah, just an artist who I think has got a very bright future and who feels like he's already had an impact in my career, just in an indirect way, I guess, but because he's made it while I've been part of the show, that's kind of maybe helped at least a little bit and put him in on the right track. And so yeah, it feels really nice. So that's it. Those are the 8 artists who I feel have had the biggest impact on my career so far. Hopefully there's at least another 8 years in it. There was a little time in 2015 where I thought I'd peaked and was going to quit, and then I got quite a few nice little jobs, so kept around, and now doing this YouTube thing and hopefully making something from this as well. So yeah, drop us some suggestions in the comments for who you think is going to be in a future update of this list, who you think maybe has been overlooked, because I'm sure there will be somebody once I've published this and once I've edited it, I think, oh, what about them? But let us know in the comments. And also let us know if there's anybody that you want to interview, especially if they're in this list. Obviously, Joe Budden is probably off the cards because, come on, he's not talking to me. But yeah, any of the other artists, I've actually interviewed a few of them already, but hopefully we can get more of them in. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.